Hello, this is Truth Be Told Transformation, and I'm Bonnie Burkert, here to share tools for transformation to live your highest truth. One thing that's true for me is the importance of having a practice, and that comes in many different forms. And one of the ways that I got into a really good routine with practices is through Kundalini yoga. And our guest today is somebody that I've met through that world, that community, who really has shown wonderful tools. It's called technology, in a way, to live our best life. And today, I've titled the show, Finding That Happiness from the Inside Out. So let's talk to Haridass to hear what that means. Welcome to the show, Haridass.
Thank you, Bonnie. It's so good to be here.
All right, thanks. So yes, we know each other from the Bhakti Fest world, and I'm really excited to learn more about all these other things that you do besides the yoga events that we know each other from.
Yes.
So one of the reasons she's here, I'm going to hold this up, we've got show and tell. Haridass has a new book called Creating Happiness. And again, the tagline on this is building yourself from the inside out. Okay,
Yes.
little bit of a different twist on from the title of the show. So I would like to, let's start with that. I mean, what does building yourself from the inside out mean?
I think that has to do with the foundational background of who you are and how you think and how you move in life. So building yourself from the inside out, what I'm referring to is the nervous system, the glands, how we speak to ourselves, how we criticize ourselves, how we self-soothe. All of that is actually an internal job. So it's not good enough just to grow up and, work and make money and just go through the matrix of life. It's what is the quality of your journey of being alive? What is your existence about? And can you, when you have dreams, when you have ideas, can you fulfill them? Can you bring them to manifestation? And I believe it takes training to do that.
That's great. Now, I really like that. Now, let's talk about some of the, one of the points, and sorry, I'm not going to remember verbatim, but I think we talked about our legacy, right? Family and our background as something that is certainly going on the inside and something that we have to manage, right? So why don't we start with that? I mean, as a foundation, as people are looking and making goals for themselves, maybe we have to look at, what are we doing? Clearing barriers? Or how does one explore that? I know in your book
Yes.
you talk about your family background, and certainly you've, a journey.
Yes, indeed. I came from Vietnam. I was born in Vietnam, and I was a refugee, an immigrant when it came to the U.S. And what I learned is when we came to the U.S. in 1975, we didn't know the language. We didn't know the culture. We barely spoke any English. And it was this idea of, you live here now, so quick, adapt quickly. And we did. We went to school, we had our jobs, all of that. But what I noticed was we carried so much of our story from the past. I was 2 months when I left the country. I mean, I look it and I can speak it and I can understand the language and the culture, but I feel like anyone who lives in the U.S. or in any country, we carry multiple personalities, multiple backgrounds and cultural identity. And how do we pick the best things from our tragic past and turn it so that it is useful now without carrying all the programming and all the baggage and the heaviness that comes with our situational karma.
That's cool. Yeah, it's a good way of looking at it. What's coming to mind in a way is like what you hold on to and what you let go of, because part of our cultural background is what makes us unique, right? So
Yes.
that's great. So we're striving for individuality, and uniqueness can be a good quality. And yet at the same time, does it make us different and thus not fitting in? So that's always an interesting question of how to figure that out.
Yeah, and I carry a lot of that from my family criticalness coming in. And what I recognized was all the guilt, the shame, the body shaming, you could have done better. It came to me in a moment when I visited Vietnam, and I actually met my family, like my nieces, my great nieces, and on. And I recognized we're all the same size 16. So why have I been shamed all my life? And I do 3 sports, and I run student government, and I had multiple jobs, and it was never enough. And there comes that part of us where we just have to decide what works for us. What do we carry? Yes, I carry my family DNA and genes, sure, but I also carry the strength, the intelligence, how to survive. And it's not just an immigrant story that's told over and over and over so that now we could be grateful for our life. It's actually, who am I? What are my strengths? What am I willing to let go of so that I don't speak that story over and over and it takes so much of my time and life force and energy?
Yeah. No, I like that. And I mean, we're talking very specifically about maybe a family, the charge around family, but the self-talk and having an investment in a story, that can also be a lot of different things. It could be a job that one once held. It could be a relationship that this is not specific to family at all. So I think one of the things I really want to call out here is staying stuck in a story.
Absolutely. The story which becomes the identity, which comes with certain values, which has certain actions and reactions and creates a whole cycle of karma.
All right. Well, okay. There's lots of different directions I can go with that. I would like to talk about that cycle of karma, but we're certainly going to come back to how we can shift off of this. So let's understand, because I think people throw the word karma around quite loosely. And I mean, I think it's great that people even have any kind of concept of, I don't know, what's the word I want to use, but the consequences of one's action,
yes,
right?
Exactly.
And so but karma is more sophisticated than that. So why don't you please explain a little bit your understanding of karma?
My understanding is when we have a certain set of actions, it calls forth a certain set of reactions. And if we are not aware of what we're doing and we keep repeating the same cycle because it's what we know, it's called repeating the same cycle of karma. Whereas if you become aware, self-aware, and you notice you're being triggered or notice that something is happening, you don't have to react. In fact, we can train ourselves to not react. There's a whole meditation, there's a series of breath we can do to calm down the nervous system. So calm down that impulse to say things just because it's what you're used to saying.
Exactly.
In fact, we can disrupt that cycle. It's a neural pattern. We can disrupt that cycle by interjecting certain tools.
All right. Well, I know you're supposed to buy the book to figure out what those tools are, but maybe you'll hint at it a little bit. So I know I watched how you just took a nice deep breath, and that's one of the most important tools that there is in anything. Whether you're driving your car, whether you're trying to, I don't know, you don't want to have to write this letter, report, document of some sort. Take that breath and just begin, right? Clear the clutter of the mind, the resistance.
I think you wrote the book, Bonnie. I mean, you're right on it. I mean, come on. Hey, that's it. That's what we do.
We're fellow yogis that way.
Yes. We have to go into action. You know how that thinking, that rumination, all those thoughts just keep happening? They get so heavy on the mind that it bogs you down from actually doing something. So one of the tools I do, one of the things I say to myself is, now I am doing this. I am now washing the dishes. I tell myself so I can hear what I'm saying and then go, oh yeah, let's do that. Because you can get so busy and so scattered and everything is a priority, but how do you focus on just one thing? And if you could just do that one thing for a few minutes, give it a time frame. I'm going to do dishes for 5 minutes. It's a better way to self-manage. Because when so much pressure is on, you just got to start.
Yeah, right. No, I love that. And the dish analogy is a perfect one for me because I cannot stand, and I always leave like 3 dishes in the sink. Like I never fully finish it. It is the weirdest pattern.
Yep.
Well, because I think to myself, well, it's just going to get filled again. But that's just...
It's a thought form, isn't it?
It is. And I mean, it's funny how a simple household chore can be revealing. Mm-hmm. And I think making the bed is another example. I mean, just how much better it feels when that bed is made. So,
right. So the feeling of having the bed made outweighs the burden of actually doing the task.
It is true.
Yeah. So if you enjoy that feeling, you're like, yes, accomplishment. Make your to-do list. Start checking them off. It actually makes you feel good. It's a little dopamine hit. It's like, yay, Bonnie, next. Gives
I know
you energy.
you have you mentioned writing, and you have some writing prompts in the book. Just curious how writing, the tool, the task, the practice of writing has worked for you in the past. I know I was just doing some work with the Artist's Way morning pages exercise, which I didn't, you're supposed to do it for like 12 weeks, and I really only did it for 4 because I started to travel and it was crazy. But I like the thought of maybe anchoring something down. So tell us a little bit about the prompts that are in the book, and then also just the practice of writing in general.
I started doing these teacher trainings about 12 years ago, and it not only did I deliver a curriculum, but what came from that, what I learned, is people integrate mostly when they speak to themselves. So if you can just take a few moments and write, that's great. It's like putting pen to paper, getting really clear on your thoughts and your words and your intentions. The book is actually designed to give you skills. I speak about it in my life, how it works for me, and then I start prompting you with questions. So it's a bit of an interactive experience, and it's to help integrate the topic. So there's task, there's homework, there's reflection, and the actual doing, the action part. So one part is learning, one part is reflecting on the learning, and then the interactive part where we ask a lot of questions and you respond. And then there's an action part where you go out and do the task.
Okay, that's great. And these are on different topics, right? Every chapter is a different topic, and you go through that process on each topic. Is that right?
Yes.
Something like that.
Yes. And the first chapter, no surprise, is called Breaking Family Karma.
Ah, okay. Yeah.
Or just the programming or the thoughts, or challenging the stories that you tell yourself and see if it's really real or affecting your life now.
Let's talk about Kundalini Yoga a little bit in this, if we can, because it's just such a fascinating practice. And I want to share, I've had this discipline, and if there's ever any interest, please send an email to either of us, and we're happy to guide you to find a teacher or really cool resources for that. And as Haridass says, are you a teacher trainer in Kundalini?
Yes.
Specifically?
Yes.
So they have, there's a specific one that I did, which was called Breaking Father Phobia. And, for those of people listening, I've got my right hand on top of my left hand, fingers are pointed forward, thumbs stuck out, kind of. It's a very interesting practice where you envision a bolt of lightning coming out of your hands. And I remember my teacher at the time who assigned me this, he said 31 minutes and that you have to do this meditation. And I don't remember the mantra that goes with it. Right. Maybe you do. And I complained, 31 minutes. He said 62. And I was on board. I did it. And I will tell you, I got a massive job at the end of that. Now, I don't know what the father phobia specific was. Again, for those of you that are only listening, I can't really show you the hand gesture exactly, but how very interesting that in this practice that Haridass and I study, it gets as specific as that, and it does look at, patterns that maybe exist, such as a phobia of the father, what the father's brought. Now, I will mention that my father grew up in wartime Germany. So what is that? What is that? That's not what we're talking about here today. What we're talking about is that there are specific opportunities to really dig in with specific tools in the form of meditation, right? And meditation, it's not just sitting quietly. Meditation could be a mantra. It could be a hand gesture. It could be a breath. There's probably other aspects I'm not thinking of. But any of this practice could be a meditation. To break through, I'm here to tell you, I stayed in that 40 days, an hour a day, doing that challenging posture, and something massive came out of it. So talk to me about your experiences. I'd like to hear when you first got into yoga. as you were figuring out your path?
Thank you. That meditation is called Trishula, and it's the
Yes.
lightning bolts of Shiva. And it is so powerful, and it comes with this mantra. So there's a certain breath pattern, there's a certain eye focus, there's a certain mudra. And when you sit in it long enough, you start to release a lot of old patterns and create new space. So the nervous system, the attention to focus, the multiple levels of awareness, you are on. You are aware, you are awake, and also you've got that timer you're paying attention to, right? So there's a lot going on. But when I recognized that Kundalini Yoga was super sophisticated, I knew I had to study it deeper and more. I moved to Los Angeles in 1999 after grad school in Boston. And I just started doing yoga and all kinds of yoga. It was Santa Monica. It was in the 90s. It was a yoga studio everywhere. There was all kinds of yoga. And then I just advanced more and more and more. And then one day I happened to come across a Kundalini yoga studio called Yoga West in on Robertson, South Robertson. And I walked in and there was this huge picture of Yogi Bhajan, and people just were sitting around having tea and practicing, and then afterwards laugh some more and have more connections. And I thought, this is so different. I've never had a yoga studio experience like this, because we were all in black spandex and rolling our yoga mats up and in and going, saying namaste, getting in and out of class. And it was a quick turnaround to the next class. So I never really felt like a connection or like a community per se. It was more like a yoga workout class. So when I found this place where people actually asked my name and wanted to know me and invited me to community events, I thought, wow, I found my tribe. And that was like 2004.
Amazing.
Like almost 20 years ago. Actually, it was 20 years ago.
You know, that's when I did my teacher's training, was there and that year.
Yeah.
Yep. Fall of '04, now that you mention it.
Yeah.
That's wild to think about. We might, I feel like we hadn't met then, but we must have met. We probably were in the same class
for a while.
We were in that same class right there.
And it was like 90 people in class. It was like one of these massive classes you go to and you feel so loved and so uplifted. But I think the power was the mantras, was all the singing, all the chanting, all with your eyes closed and just singing for yourself. It changed me.
Yeah.
Because I never really had a voice. Like, again, about the cultural thing, about being female and Asian and immigrant family. I had so much stories about me that it tightened me up. I didn't much really have a voice.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't have an opinion when I got to college. People asked me things like, I have no idea. I'm the youngest of 10. And no one's ever asked me that question. I just eat what you give me. I just wear what you give me. I have no idea, you know? And I finally think taking control of your life, asking yourself questions, and being like real with yourself. Like, is this in my alignment with what I want to do? I didn't think I had the luxury of saying that. I didn't know I had a choice. I just kind of went with the tide.
It's fascinating to hear your background, because I would have never thought of you that way. I see a very confident woman who is getting it done. And so there you go, everyone. There's a testament to a strong practice. So tell us a little bit more, because I know it's not only the mantras and the kriyas of Kundalini Yoga. Tell us a little bit more of what you discovered, what we can find in the book, and some of the workshops that you offer.
The experience of Kundalini Yoga is so powerful. There is time where you do the movement, you do the kriya, and the kriya just means there's a bunch of actions in a certain amount of time. So maybe it's leg lifts, maybe it's arm lifts, it's whatever the movement is. You've got like 1 to 3 minutes. It's not even that long. So unlike my other hatha yin practices, I followed the teacher and it was movement and breath. This one in Kundalini Yoga is completely you have no idea what you're going yourself into. Like, it's a total surrender. You come to class, you don't know if it's a kriya for elevation, it's a kriya for healthy bowel. You have no idea, and you just listen to what the teacher says.
Right.
And then do this, go. And then you move into action. And that clicked in my mind. It made me do something I've never done before, which was listen and do the action. Versus questioning how long, your mind just goes into this monkey mind mode and starts to actually ask a bunch of questions, which has nothing to do with the actual movement. It just wants to have this conversation with you. And after a while, I developed my practice so much that when I hear these thoughts and voices, I just don't even pay attention to them. I don't give in to the impulse.
That's a huge part of the practice. And I mean, for me, I'd say some of my early experiences were, like you say, how to stay present and not be thinking about, what am I going to eat after class? And I will just use this, and certainly I've had a lot of mantra chant artists on my show. It's a world that I love here in Los Angeles. A lot of great music, and I'm finding so. What I want to say is that the music can help you stay present with it. I really think that that's super, or a mantra. It doesn't necessarily only have to be music, but I think finding that might help quiet that inner voice. I mean, this is also part of the inside that we're working on. To find that charge that will bring us what we desire and thus happy.
Your voice, the way you chant, the way you sound, you got to love your voice. You got to love it because you're the only one that has it. It's very unique. But when we don't listen to ourselves and we're just talking, we're not developing the audio feedback. We're not developing the sensory feedback. So now we have to develop the body scan. How does it feel in your body when you say that? How does it feel when you go to different places, or what you wear or what you eat? So we're becoming more self-aware. So in the classes, you're also doing movement, and then you're staying in those movements for a few minutes. So this is where the nervous system gets a chance to upgrade. When you inhale, you hold the breath, you synchronize, and then you exhale. And then it's on to the next movement and on to the next movement. And at the end of class, hopefully you get a meditation in where you focus your mind, sit in the mudra, and do the action. And that's as simple as it gets. So how is it that we improve ourselves and get stronger by doing actions like that? There comes a point where you got to use your grit, where you got to use your focus and stay in the movement. It could be like your arms are out for 11 minutes. You know, it could be something long. But how you speak to yourself in those few minutes is very important.
Okay.
Is very important.
I like the word grit.
Stamina, grit, focus.
Yeah.
Because
Commitment.
it's just you and a timer, right? It's no big deal. But if you can trust yourself and develop that trust and that confidence, it keeps building. It keeps building so you really know who you are and what you can handle.
Yeah. It's interesting. It's definitely easier to do it in a classroom with loud music playing, right? Or maybe sometimes even live music. When you're by yourself, I mean, I really need the music to help me, but there's always no one's watching, so I'm going to put my arms down. And so, yeah, I mean, that is, it's a thought for those of you listening and thinking about classes, you know, when in community, I think that, yes, you don't want to be shamed because your arms have gone down, but it's also, there's something about the collective that helps with the uplift the energy.
It is so magnetic. If you sit next to someone who's breathing loud, you'll breathe loud. If you see them lifting their arms, you're going to try. There is something that happens to us when we're in community, when we're in a class, we're in a busy class. You just all want to keep up. You all want to keep your arms up, your legs up, and do your very best. And I think it's because we love each other. We love to be in a group setting.
Yeah, yeah. It is really interesting to support each other in that way, without even realizing you're doing it a lot of times. It's like me showing up my best can help somebody else, but your eyes are closed, so you don't necessarily even know.
That's right.
But you see that. Let's talk about you teaching. So are people finding this practice more and more? I mean, I always like to ask people, so where are we at? Like, where are we at in 2024? What's the trajectory? There's a lot of yoga out there. Yeah. And I'm not trying to, just only specifically beat the drum about Kundalini yoga, but I do think that it is more esoteric. It's not exercise yoga, although one can stay fit through it. But just curious what the uptake is in terms of people understanding that yoga is not only the perfect down dog. My least favorite pose.
Right. I would say people want to be connected to each other. So when I do these teachings, and I just came from, this last month I was in 5 countries in 4 weeks.
Oh my gosh,
Haridass. Constantly being at these festivals. I was just at festivals.
Jetset.com. No, it's wonderful.
It's wonderful.
Yeah, so how's it feel out there?
People are open. They're just open and they want to experience something. So when we get together, I think these workshops have been about 2.5, 3 hours at these festivals, but I also went to Vancouver and Nanaimo, and I went to these different communities, and I sat with people, like 10, 15 people at a time. We did our yoga, we did our meditation, but most importantly, we had these conversations. And what came up in Canada was very different. Like there was a Punjabi community, and they spoke of their issues as being women and being not being seen, and being born as a woman versus a man. So I think it became this conversation piece where we were so open we could discuss anything, but they just needed a facilitator, moderator to do it. I didn't anticipate that at all.
Yeah.
And then over in Canada, in Vancouver, in Nanaimo on the island, they talked about little girls. We started talking about our fragmented little girls that we carried in our hearts. And it became a sister circle of love. Like, what does your little girl need to say or hear so that she feels safe? So it became so heartfelt and so real that we just recognized how much we loved each other, and women need to support each other. Like, we are all here for each other. So how are we as women supposed to show up and love our community where we are so mean and rough to ourselves? How are we supposed to show up and be caretakers where we're damaged, fragmented little girls?
Wow. It's a big question. And I'd like to think that there's progress. And yet in other ways, I think what's resonating in my mind is hearing the challenges that people have with social media, which is tricky because it's a medium that certainly helps us get the word out about a show like this. And there can be an upside to it. But there can also be that sort of darker side of, I don't know, everybody feeling like they have to be picture perfect on there. And did they only get 60 likes? Oh no. And so I do think that it is it's interesting for younger people in general, younger women specifically. I don't like the statistics I hear about how people are coping out there. And what we're trying to do with a show like this and women like Haridass and myself is to really, through different mediums, different opportunities, is to really help people raise the vibe. And you're having us look more closely with it.
Yes.
Having a chance to put out a book like this, studying, right? Go excavating a little bit.
I think it's necessary at this time because we are so into all that social media stuff. We're all constantly looking outside. But the job we have to do is an internal job.
Happiness is an inside job. And there's a quote that I pulled that I wanted to mention because I really like this. Silence is the healing balm. Okay, so when we're talking about the inside job, let's talk about really what you just said there was silence, because this is the second time I actually got a big message about silence, something I was listening to last night. It was talking about the importance of having that space to hear and I think healing balm, as you say. So talk to me a little bit about your feelings with that.
Silence is a gift you give yourself, and it really is about you not needing anything. Not needing your phone to look at, anything that makes you feel anything. You just become silent, become still, and let the chatter of the mind fall away. This takes a lot of self-love and compassion to say, I'm going to give myself a few minutes of silence. Because it's so potent and it's so powerful. When you're silent, you're relaxed. And when you're relaxed, you are most creative. So why are we not creative? Because we feel the pressures of constantly acting. What if we just created that vacuum? What if we just became silent?
I think there is a lot of opportunity in that. And because I've always worked around music, and so consequently I have music on a lot. And lately I've caught myself being more selective of when I do. And it's really interesting that sometimes things come to mind if I am just me. And sure, there's all kinds of self-talk going on. And a self-talk could be not necessarily negative. The self-talk could be like, oh, don't forget you got to call this person or, make this appointment. I mean, it could be sort of prompts like that. But I know there's also the don't forget stuff, I mean, stuff that's come up has been very specific action items. I mean, it's like, if I wouldn't have maybe been in that quiet and instead consuming more and more and more, more is not always more. In that quiet, in the blankness, I definitely had revelations. Lots of, and I'm not saying, you know, it's profound. It might have just been something that I almost forgot to do. Thank goodness I didn't. And I just really, I'm here as an advocate on a lot of different levels. It can be very specific day-to-day reasons to make sure that you've got a little bit of space and quietude in your life, or it could be much bigger, and that's what the conversation about meditation ultimately is.
I think silence is about space, the space you give yourself, and not needing to react. But yes, things do come up, and it can just hang out there without needing to react to it and write it down or do other things. Because there's a space where we just, when you hit that silent space, it feels so good. Nothing can buy that. Nothing can buy that. You must do it for yourself. And one of the ways is to get into Shavasana, you know, after a class, right? After a class, you just lay down. They're like, okay, time for Shavasana, lay out. Great, right? So it's just that moment of stillness. Do we pass out? Do we snore? Who knows? But the point is to rest. As much as in Kundalini Yoga, you want to go, work hard. At the end, it always ends with the breath that seals it all. The breath that seals in the movement, and then the exhale. And that's actually a biohack that's trending right now that I saw it on so many accounts. Inhale 2 short breaths and one long exhale.
Okay.
So the more you exhale.
Inhale through your nose?
Yeah. 2 sniffs, 1 long.
All right. I'm into it.
Yeah, that's just what's trending. But in Kundalini Yoga, we have one that's, 4 in, 4 out, 8 in, 1 out.
Yeah.
Like, we have these segmented breaths that actually has effects on your brain.
Yeah. I had a Tej.
Yes.
Tej Kaur. She was on and she gave a Kriya. So look up this episode of Truth Be Told sometime and to watch it. And it was, I can't remember exactly, but it was definitely a breathing. It wasn't that hard. It was a breathing technique. And it was specifically, again, we're just talking about how meditations can be this specific. And it was for when you don't know what to do. And I am here to tell you, it really worked. It really, really, really worked. So breathing. Mm-hmm. So you don't have to hold your arms up for 62 minutes or anything like that. I mean, it can be as simple as the breathing. But I think it's fun that you're watching how people are discovering different, what's trending right now. And I'm glad that certain breathing techniques are what's trending.
Yeah. You know, the amazing capacity we have is in our lungs, we have 600 million sacs of air, 300 on each side. Wow. And most of us are not breathing deeply. We're not accessing 600,000. We're not getting to our 1,500 cc's of air. We're doing like a third. So if we can actually breathe deeper, we're going to have more energy. And the more energy, more air oxygen supply you have, the more calm you can be. And the more things you can hit on that list because you have a surplus of oxygen.
It's really great. So in our final moments, creating happiness. So tell me what you see is happiness for you, and happiness that we should all strive towards.
Happiness is an internal job where you can face the thoughts that you have and assess them, like honestly assess them and decide what is useful and what is not useful. So training your mind to look for the opportunities, to seek opportunities, not just listen to all the complaints and keep repeating them, but look for what is in this lesson. What did I learn from this? How can I get better? How can I evolve? And then when you have an idea, to bring it to actual fruition. So taking that thought, making it into something real, manifesting it on planet Earth, that takes energy and that takes skill. And when you do that, you get better and better and better. So there's self-confidence, there's self-reliance, you know who you are. and you have enough energy to meet the challenge.
Oh, it's good. I like that. And you've written a beautiful book to help us figure that out and to give great suggestions on how to do it. A reflection on, family, how family affects us, and yet how we can take control and truly, do just that. Be our best. Be our shiniest, as I like to tell everybody.
That's
to
right.
shine on.
And there's in the back there's KRI certified moves. So there's kriyas, there's meditations, there's breath work. So it's illustrated for you, so it's easy to practice. And
if you're interested, again, in Kundalini Yoga, there's a lot of information as I kind of flip through this right here. Again, creating happiness, Dr. Haridass Kaur. How do you, tell me your doctorate, it's in
natural health, actually. Yes. And I have been practicing for 20 years with this, and I did it through massage, through body work, through nutrition, understanding how to release the blocks of chi.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So
that's important. In fact, that was, I almost entitled the show about that, is the unblocking the chi. And we've certainly been, in our conversation, we've been giving some suggestions. I mean, all of these Kundalini Kriyas and breathing and everything like that would be recommendations of that. But any final words on that, just to help people tune into what those blockages might be so that they can discover.
Be, physical, emotional, mental. There could be all kinds of blocks. But if you can become more in alignment with your goals and your missions, you'll notice a lot of things that you paid attention to, you won't spend that much time and energy on.
All right.
You're actually going to follow your own North Star. You got to figure that out for yourself. And I've designed these 5-day immersions in Valle de Bravo, in Mexico, in Nepal, in India, where people can come and just be with me and sink their feet into the earth, go play, have interactive classes, meditate, do yoga, breathing, but most importantly, give time for themselves to really shed the things they no longer want to carry with them.
Okay, that's great. So much here. And to find out more about Dr. Haridass, you can go to infinitegoddess.com. Certainly a goal that I wish to achieve. And, it feels really, really great. And I know you will be at Bhakti Fest, in addition to some of these workshops that require a passport. If you're in the Southern California area, I know that I hope to see you there for sure. Bhakti Fest 2024
I'll be teaching there.
in late September, and lots of other opportunities. So thank you so much for coming to say hello and sharing with us, and always a pleasure and very inspiring as well.
Thank you, Bonnie.
Appreciate it. Thanks for listening, everybody. I am Bonnie, and just so you know, Tony Sweet is on every Friday at 3 p.m. We gather the community there to say hi to each other, so that's live at 3 p.m. Pacific. Robert Hensley's got shows all the time via the Minuteman Report, and we are here to spread good vibes always, just really trying to educate people and show the possibilities of a wondrous life. So we thank you for sharing and liking and following wherever you possibly can. And until the next time, shine on.